Second-year players ready to break out in fantasy football are some of the best values in most of your drafts because your league mates didn't see them break out last year. They don't really want to draft them this year. So here are my top 10 second-year breakouts that I think are going to help teams win fantasy championships in 2023. Let's start at number 1 with Garrett Wilson. No surprise here. He's expected to have a monster second year. This is a stud player, a stud prospect, and he got a major quarterback upgrade in Aaron Rodgers. Remember last year, 1,100 yards, and he had to play with Mike White, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson. It was horrible. Now he has Aaron Rodgers. He has no competition for targets here. Corey Davis just retired. Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Mecole Hardman. He's going to be a target monster, getting passes from a very good QB. He has a real shot for a top 10 wide receiver season this year. Maybe even a top 5 season, primed for a huge second-year breakout. I am getting Garrett Wilson every chance I can. I'm also getting Chris Olave every chance I can. Also had a very nice season last year with horrible quarterback play. Had some decent play early in the year with Jameis Winston, but then had to play with Andy Dalton for most of the season. Even had to play a game or two with Taysom Hill at quarterback. Missed 2 games last year. Still went over 1,000 yards. Really put up very similar numbers to Garrett Wilson, but because he didn't get all the pre-draft hype that Garrett Wilson did, people haven't really noticed. This guy also was a stud prospect, a stud in college. He's absolutely already one of the best route runners in the entire NFL. He's an elite wide receiver. And no, Derek Carr may not be the quarterback upgrade that Aaron Rodgers is, but Derek Carr is still a significant upgrade over Andy Dalton and Taysom Hill. And again, when you look at this Saints wide receiver room, all right, I know a lot of people are back on the Michael Thomas train for the 4th straight year. Good luck with that. He's an over 30-year-old wide receiver who can't stay healthy. I do like Rashid Shaheed, another potential second-year breakout, but he's not on the caliber of level that Chris Olave is. Olave is a stud wide receiver. He's going to get a massive target share in this offense with a major quarterback upgrade. Another player primed for a huge second-year breakout. As is Drake London, even though he plays for the Falcons. I know I've gotten a lot of pushback on Drake London this year. I've been talking about him all offseason, but Drake London is absolutely primed for a breakout, and the people who realize it are going to benefit, and the people who are too scared to draft him are going to miss out. But Drake London, another stud prospect last year. Remember, he was the first wide receiver drafted, pick number 8 in the first round to the Falcons. And when you look at him as a rookie, he shined in terms of route running and separation and how he did against different coverages. It just didn't show up in the stats because he had to play with Marcus Mariota, who unquestionably was the worst starting quarterback in the NFL last year, who actually started games by choice. Like his team chose to start him, not guys who had to come in because of injury like Taysom Hill. I'm talking about a guy who the team willingly said, you start for us, even though you're worse than every other quarterback in the NFL. Desmond Ridder, no, he's not going to be some superstar QB, but I think he'll be good enough. He showed some promise in that preseason game against the Bengals starting defense, 7 for 9, 80 yards. And Drake London had 3 of those 9 targets, and that's what I keep talking about here. He's going to get a massive target share, close to a 30% target share every single week. If they throw the ball just 30 times, that's 9 to 10 targets a week. It is hard for a wide receiver to fail getting that kind of usage, and Drake London is an absolute stud. I don't see it happening. Another guy primed for a major second-year breakout. As is Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers, and I know a lot of people worried here because Aaron Rodgers, who I talked about, is now in New York, and he's playing with Jordan Love, but Jordan Love is more than capable here, and Christian Watson isn't a guy who needs a ton of targets. This is a guy, get the ball in his hands, let him do his thing. Absolute freak of nature athletically. We saw it last year. It wasn't like he was running down the field catching dimes from Aaron Rodgers. He was catching slants, taking them to the house, breaking a tackle, taking it to the house. That's what he can do, and that's what he's going to do in this offense. Now, he didn't quite have the pedigree of the first 3 wide receivers coming out of the draft, and he didn't show the route running and separation of those first 3 guys his rookie year, but he has the makings of a true alpha wide receiver. If he can take a step forward this year, it could absolutely happen. Big time second year incoming. And again, look at the competition around him. Rookie Jaden Reed, rookie Luke Musgrave, the tight end, second year player Romeo Doubs. He's going to be the clear number 1 target in this offense. He has a chance to hit a home run every time the ball is in his hands. Huge weekly upside. Another guy primed for a huge second year. Now, it's not just all wide receivers primed for a breakout. Dameon Pierce, running back for the Houston Texans, I think is primed for a huge season. I've kind of been on the fence about him this year, I got to be honest, because he was a guy last year, wasn't super efficient, not a super explosive runner, not a guy who's going to, take an 80-yard touchdown to the house or anything, but he got the volume. He's one of those guys who constantly picks up yards, breaks tackles, moves the chains forward. He also wasn't used in the passing game last year, and that was my big worry for him, was like, okay, if he's just going to be the early down guy in this offense with rookie quarterback CJ Stroud, like, what is really his upside? How many touchdowns can he really score? What can he really do? But it looks like his role has actually changed, because in the second preseason game, he played almost all of the third down snaps. Last year, he only played 25% of third down snaps. It looks like the Texans are ready to make him an absolute 3-down workhorse. And if that's the case, that is fantastic for his fantasy value. He was a good pass catcher in college. It wasn't like he can't do it. He's not one of these guys with stone hands. He can catch the ball. I think they're going to use him that way more. He's a guy you can get in the middle to the late middle rounds of your fantasy drafts, who has a chance to be a high-end RB2 every single week in fantasy. Dameon Pierce looks like he is primed for a second-year breakout. Back to wide receiver, Jahan Dotson, another rookie wide receiver who was absolutely awesome last year when you look at him as a route runner, as a separator against coverage, and just didn't put up the stats because A, didn't play every game, and B, was also stuck with terrible quarterback play last year, but he showed flashes. He's an incredible route runner, probably the best route runner of any of the rookies last year, and that's not even a joke or an exaggeration. He was also the best contested catch wide receiver among all the rookies last year, one of the best contested catch wide receivers in the entire NFL last year. He's an absolute stud, ready to make that second-year leap. So far, all the talk about Sam Howell is he looks great. They've already named him the starter, not for week one, for the entire season, which shows what the Commanders think of Sam Howell. Sam Howell was a talented quarterback his first 2 years in college, put up very good numbers, took a step back his third year, but look, the talent is there. They got Eric Bieniemy now. This offense should be better. Terry McLaurin now dealing with a turf toe. He may miss some games early. Jahan Dotson is set to come out of the gates on fire and be an absolute wide receiver breakout this year that people aren't drafting because he didn't do a whole lot last year. And then George Pickens is a receiver that a lot of people are drafting and are high on this year, expecting a second-year breakout. And I got to be honest, I'm starting to come around on him. It seems like every week this preseason, he has made a highlight reel catch, but that is not the reason why I think he's poised for a potential breakout. We know he's one of the best contested catch wide receivers, a freak athlete. We get all that. My worry was that this offense would be too conservative and Kenny Pickett wouldn't be able to get him the ball the way he needs to get him the ball. But so far in the preseason, this offense has been the opposite of that. It looks like offensive coordinator Matt Canada knows this is his last chance. His job is on the line. He's letting it rip. Now, maybe that's just a preseason thing. You don't want to put too much weight on preseason, but at the same time, we know this guy has a talent. He's now 2 years fully removed from that ACL tear he suffered his last year of college. So we can see a fully healthy George Pickens in an offense that actually opens up a little bit and isn't this conservative, dink and dunk, run heavy offense. And if that happens, George Pickens, with his talent, will definitely have a second-year breakout. Hey, before I get to the rest of my players, got some exciting news. August is almost over, and you know what that means. Time is running out for you to draft all your fantasy football teams on Underdog Fantasy. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you do is one live snake draft. No waivers, no trades. You set it, forget it, and Underdog does the rest. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania Tournament, the largest fantasy football contest of all time, with $15 million of total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Do you have what it takes to win? The time is now. The last day to draft your fantasy football team is September 7th. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with our promo code ENDGAME to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ENDGAME. And it's kind of the same thing with James Cook. Didn't do a whole lot last year, but is ready to have a massive second-year breakout. A great pass-catching running back, was a great pass catcher at Georgia in college, was a great pass catcher last year. But what I really love about James Cook is he is an efficient, explosive runner, was one of the top runners in yards per touch, was also one of the top runners in breakaway run rate and breakaway runs. So he's got that home run ability. He's got the speed. he's efficient, and he's in an offense that lets him get out in space. He's not going to be asked to come in on 3rd and 2 when the defense knows they're running and try to break tackles. No, he's going to be out there catching the ball in space, getting carries when the defense has light boxes, a lot of DBs on the field, and that's going to allow him to use his speed and his efficiency to pick up chunks of yardage at any time. He has a real shot for 50-plus catches this year, and if he does, he's going to at least be an RB2 in PPR leagues, has decent touchdown upside in this offense, and the only other running backs really to contend with right now are Damian Harris, who's kind of banged up. He's just a grinder. And Latavius Murray, who I got to give him credit, he's still chugging along pretty well into his 30s. But I mean, come on. What are we really expecting from these guys? James Cook could be the highest scoring running back in this Buffalo offense as far as fantasy goes. He's an absolute steal in drafts, has tremendous upside, and is ready to make the leap in year 2. As is another pass catching back, Rachaad White in Tampa Bay, a guy I had high hopes for last year. A lot of people had high hopes for, and he really disappointed. But now is the time to draft him because his value is very low and he's locked into a 3-down workhorse role. And at a minimum, he's going to be the pass catcher because even last year, only playing 40% of the snaps, he had 58 targets and 50 catches. And Jacob Gibbs of CBS and Sportsline recently looked at this, and running backs who get at least 85 targets finish as a top 12 PPR running back 88% of the time and a top 12 half PPR running back 80% of the time. He had 58 targets playing 40% of the snaps last year, with Leonard Fournette getting even more targets. 85 targets feels very easy for Rachaad White this year, and if that happens, that gives him a great chance to finish as an RB1, a top 12 running back. And Baker Mayfield led all quarterbacks in check down rate last year. He's already been named the starter. He's going to check down to Rachaad White over and over again, especially behind this terrible offensive line. Rachaad White in your half PPR and PPR leagues is going to be a monster in fantasy, a PPR monster in fantasy, ready to break out in year 2. And then another player who really disappointed last year, Sky Moore, did nothing as a rookie. Well, he did a little more than nothing. He had like 250 yards, but barely played, barely saw the field, barely got any targets. But there's reasons for optimism entering year 2. Number 1, second year in this Andy Reid offense. It's not an easy offense to learn. And remember, he didn't come from a big-time program. He didn't play for Bama or Ohio State, so he had to adjust to the differences at the NFL level. Now going into year 2, he should be better, but what I really like is in the first 2 preseason games, he's played all but 3 snaps with Patrick Mahomes. That shows that the Chiefs clearly view him as the number 2 wide receiver. Really, it's him and Marquez Valdes-Scantling are the 2 starting receivers, but MVS plays that X role. Sky Moore is going to line up all over the field in that flanker role, which is so good for him. He's going to get run out of the slot, off the line of scrimmage. He was a great route runner in college. He's got the talent. He's in the situation with Patrick Mahomes and this offense. I think he makes a second-year breakout this year. I don't expect him to be up there with the Garrett Wilsons, Chris Olaves, and those guys, of course, but he doesn't need to where you're drafting him, getting him outside the top 100 players generally. He could easily push for 800 plus yards, maybe 1,000, maybe 6 to 8 touchdowns in this offense. And where you're getting them, that is more than enough. So don't ignore Sky Moore in your drafts like your league mates will. So those players are ready to make second-year breakouts this year, but which wide receivers do you have to draft? Find out here.